here is today's menu. Pressure cooked brown rice, seitan stew, baked carrots with thyme, steamed kale with seeds, and sauerkraut. First of all, I've taken my brown rice. I have rinsed it 2-3 times very quickly, and then I found the amount of water. And you wonder why I have a little pot when I'm pressure cooking it. It's actually because that when we are only few people here, so I cook it a small amount in a big pot is kind of drowning and the energy gets collapsed. So I like to get a lot of energy into my food, and one of the ways of doing it is by compacting it so the energy can't go out. So I measure the amount of water for my brown rice by putting my hand flat on, and this fits for here. And it's funny because when I'm in Denmark, I actually have to have the water higher up, but it's something about the quality of the water. This fits amazingly well for every hand, and it's a very easy way of doing it. So I'll put my rice on to cook here. At the same time, I will put my pressure cooker on, and I'll put that on next to, and I'll actually have a little bowl here with another bowl in, and the rice is going to go into this one. But before that, we do need some water in the bottom, otherwise it doesn't turn out right. This water really doesn't come in any contact with the rice, so this water is just staying there forever. Okay, so now we got those two going. So let's look at the thing that takes the most time of the rest. That's the baked carrots with thyme. So I'm gonna get going on them. First of all, I'm gonna turn the oven on. When I wash carrots, I am using a brush like this. You can actually use any brush. I'm gonna just go like this. My carrots is washed. So what I do now is that I just take the bad spots off them. Goes into my compost. I am so fortunate that I live in my countryside. I grow vegetables. Right now these are not homegrown. I also compost, and we have water from a well. So we are all very fortunate. Best quality, everything. So now I want to bake them, and I know I have a limited time, but see these ends, they're kind of not so thick, so just give them like that. I come up here, I'll actually do them more like this. This way I do get some pretty big pieces, but they are actually not very thick. Put the carrots in here. You can do them without oil, but they actually do turn out very nice with a little oil on. And where we have oil, we also need salt. So we need to have some salt on them. I was just out in my garden getting some thyme. And thyme, it tastes great, but there is all these long strips on them. So I usually just get all the small good parts out of them by just rubbing them like this.
What oil did you use?
Oh, what kind of oil I used? Oh, I used sesame oil. Some people would say, oh, don't cook with sesame oil, and some people say, don't cook with olive oil, and there's a lot of opinions out there. So I've had people come to my house, and they've been eating my food, and they've ended up being cured for cancer, so I am quite calm about it all. I think that we need to be, not to be scared about food. Food is there for us to enjoy it. So the rice is boiling. Once that's boiling, we add a little bit of salt. The purpose of the salt, that is to bring out the sweet flavor, and it's also to make it more digestible and also to make it a little more alkaline. So it has many different purposes. No, it's not to give it a salty taste, not at all. Actually, if it's salty, you're going to have cravings afterwards. You're not going to be satisfied after eating it. And if you leave the salt out, you're actually going to have a little harder time digesting it, and you're also not going to be satisfied. So you need that little bit of salt. The places where I use more salt, that is the places where I have oil. Here, now I'm adding a lid. This is my own homemade version. You can buy very fancy like Osawa pots they're called. And so here, the lid is on the pressure cooker and full speed on, and it's going to go in a little while. It's going to be up to pressure. When it's up to pressure, then we'll give it about 45 minutes more. So the idea with the pressure cooker is not so much to get the rice cooked faster. Okay, the oven is ready for my carrots. It's talking to me. The idea with the pressure cooker is actually to get the rice cooked in a way so it gets easier to be digested. And it gets more concentrated. You can cook it with less water. So it's more the quality of the rice. And a lot of people would say this is silly, but I must admit I like my pressure cooked rice. Well, I don't just like it, I love it.
Turn the heat down after it comes up?
Yeah. When the rice is up to pressure, I turn the heat down.
Go low?
Yeah, actually to all the way low. And if I had not put a pot inside the pressure cooker, I would have used one of those, what do you call them, flame things, what do you call them over here, to put underneath so that the pot would not be burning on the bottom. Do you like thyme? Or do you think it will be too much for you to eat?
No. It seems like a lot, but
I like herbs. So yeah, it seems like a lot. Or maybe you're right, maybe it's a little much. We'll just leave the last little bit and put it in a little plate and dry it. So first of all, we want to mix it around so we get the thyme and the salt and the oil mixed around here. When it's all mixed well together, just get it into the oven, and that's it. I found some onions, I have some seitan, which is just natural, and I have a little kombu, which I will just soak while I'm fixing the onions. So the first step here is to fix the onions. And I usually peel onions this way. First that part, then I cut them like this. And I've soaked them in water first, and if I've soaked them long enough before I need to use them, I can actually just pull this part up here, and they pull off very easy. But you can peel them any way you like. If you only have 1 or 2 onions like I have here, it doesn't make a big difference, but if you have many onions, it will make a difference. Here I have my little wonderful pot. So I get my pot to heat up under slow heat while I'm cutting the onions. That way I don't have to wait for my pot to get warm later. It's just small things like that makes cooking a little faster and a little easier. On the other hand, you don't want to burn that pot, so you don't want to get it to be too hot or do it too early. The best way of knowing if a pot gets too hot or not too hot is, then we'll add some oil, because we will use oil on this dish. This dish there is kombu, there will be soy sauce, and there is seitan. So that is going to be like a mix of minerals and proteins. So we'll just put one little piece of onion down there, because by putting that one piece of onion down there, we will see or hear that when it starts sizzling, then we know, aha, now the oil is warm. And then we'll put the other onions in too. So we need to give it a little more heat because nothing much is happening here. I like to cook with chopsticks. I actually never eat with them, but I like to cook with them. So we'll have to wait for that. Meanwhile, let's open the seitan. Starts to be sizzling here. So when you listen to it now, it sounds a little bit too angry. So I'm going to turn down the heat a little bit to not have it sound so angry. And also, as long as it sounds angry, I'm going to stir it. Otherwise, you don't have to stir it all the time. As soon as it doesn't sound so angry, it can be sizzling kind of on its own, and then stir it a little bit once in a while. See, now it doesn't sound angry anymore. So now I can take care of my cutting board. I wash it. I just rinse it quickly between the different things I put on it. I don't like to have it dirty, and it gives a nice good feeling of order. I get rid of my things for the compost. Now I'm all ready to get the seitan together. Let's see here. They kind of come in pieces, but I usually like to separate them just a little bit. They will separate it by time, but sometimes there's some very big pieces in between. Yeah, like here, there's one. So I like to make them so that they are even-sized pieces. What seitan is actually a wheat product. And it's actually the part of the wheat that people say, well, we can't have so much gluten. So it's actually the gluten. So, and the gluten of the wheat, that is the protein part. So seitan is how protein is today. You can see the onions are doing fine without me stirring them all the time. And once in a while I stir them a little bit to make sure that they get evenly. But basically I try to not disturb the food. That's one of the key things to get good energy into food. Another key to actually making energy in the food is to be present with what you're doing. So I wash my cutting board and I wash my hands between. I do everything. And here is the kombu. It has now been soaked. So we'll cut it. Actually, I could have had just a little bit more of it, but it is what it is. You can also make this dish without adding kombu to it, or you could add some more, whichever way you liked. So this will lay here and wait until the onions are ready for it. So, and what are we waiting for with the onions? When I say when we're waiting to see them ready, then what we're waiting for is to see that the strong onion smell disappears. And not just the smell, but also that they get kind of clear in their color. Here we go. So, that is those. So while we're waiting for that, I'll find a few things for the rest. So now the onions start to be good. Can turn up the heat a little bit. Add in the seitan. Add in some water. The water I primarily add in because I like to make it like a stew, like a saucy thing. I want to add a little soy sauce. I want to add some herb, and what I have here is I have sisu, green sisu that I've had in my own garden. You can use any kind of herbs, basil, oregano, hyssop, marum, wonder what that is, loverts, well, any kind of herbs. There's a lot more herbs than the usual ones. I usually don't like to use very strong spices, but I love to use herbs, and I have herbs in my garden. I try to get many special herbs. Meanwhile, I'm going to start roasting some pumpkin seeds. Oh, the seaweed didn't get in there. That was not so good. So let's get the seaweed in there as well. Ready for them to when they're done. So this pot, this is one of my favorite little pots. It's cast iron. I got it in Denmark. Or I think we can use some olive. Oh, here was some that was not nice. Take that out. What is important when we do seeds is that we stir all the time, because even now you think, okay, the seeds are not that warm, so why not? Why stir all the time? But here actually it is important. If I weren't to stir all the time, then what would happen is that some seeds would get very, very hot before, and while some other seeds still were cold. And the reason why I just feel them with my hand is I just want to feel how far they've gone. Because I know when they all start to be warm, I need to be careful that they're not burning, and then I'm going to turn down the heat. This pot is a thick cast iron pot, so it's going to keep the heat for a long time. So I don't want it to get so warm that they end up burning. So now they start to be warm, so I turn down the heat. And also this one is starting to boil. I will just hurry up and get these ones underneath because they're not going to be done otherwise. And this may be not so good for my seeds. I'm just going to turn down. Oops. They're not supposed to stay like that. That's because I wasn't stirring for a while. So when they pop, actually, what happens is that they become flat again. Seeds, when you roast them, are not supposed to pop. They are supposed to puff up and swell, so they get air inside, but they're not supposed to pop. Which takes patience. A lot of people will try to get done with it faster than you really can get done with it. So now I feel, now they're so hot that it's kind of hard to keep them in my hand. So they would burn very quickly. And I can also feel some of them starts to be puffed up and they're very warm. And then there's one thing we need to know about seeds, and that is that they will, the big seeds like nuts and these ones, they will keep roasting for a while after we take them off the fire. So usually we need to cake them off a little bit before they're done. Whereas small seeds like sesame seeds, they will stop pretty much immediately after they get off. So we don't want them to get dark brown. We don't want them to be burned. We want them to be evenly roasted. I'm just going to turn off the heat now because they will be fine. I'm just going to check these things. They're doing well, but a little slow, so I'm going to give it just a tiny touch more heat. And that's another way. We can kind of decide the kind of quality energy there is in the pot. If you cook it on high heat, it will not be calm energy. If you cook it on low, slow heat, you will get a lot of calm, steady heat and calm, steady energy, which is an energy that we like to have. So, let's see where did my things go here. Okay, they're done. I turned off the fire. We'll take them out of here. This is again, even if they're done, if I leave them in this pot, then they would keep boiling. Or not boiling, but keep roasting. So I don't leave them in the pot. And now, if I wanted to put some soy sauce on it, now would be the time. I don't want to do that today, but if I wanted to, that would be the time. So here I have some kale from my garden that I have washed. It's these very big, nice, I think lacinato kale is their name. I think here is one that's has a little corner that's not so nice. Besides that, they're just ready to go. And they're freshly picked, so that gives more energy to the food, much more energy in the food of eating freshly cooked vegetables from the garden. I was surprised when I moved over here to America and I didn't have a garden in the beginning, and I only have a small one now, but I will have more. I was buying the best organic foods and whole food and so on. I still couldn't get the energy into the food that I'm used to getting. That was a not very nice thing, so I know it really makes a difference to be able to have the things fresh. Even if you buy them from a farm nearby and you only go and buy them once a week, you don't get nearly the same kind of energy as if you just can go out and get fresh food, pick it, and then put it right in your mouth, so to say, or at least in your cooking. So fresh food is actually, I would say, a very high priority. It's also a thing that many people don't know, and then they want extra much sweetener and extra much quick energy, fast carbohydrates, because they actually get too little energy because the food is old. So here is tahini in a cup, and I have a little teaspoon. You could use kind of any kind of nut butter as well. It's not like I want to use a huge amount, so, but that little amount make like 2 small teaspoons or 1 tablespoon, whatever you want to, like this is like the amount, so it's not a whole lot. I'll add a little bit of water to it at a time. If you add a lot of water, you just get it to be, it separates. If you add a little water at a time, you see the first thing that happens when you add water to tahini, that is actually that it gets thicker and more stiff. Which also tells you a little bit of what probably happens when it comes into your body. If you don't take it into your body with water, then it gets thicker and more stiff and stuck. So my recommendation is to never eat nut butters or tahini or any of those kind of things without that you stir them up first. And they get cheaper and they get more healthy. And taste-wise, it's actually the same. I usually not only stir it up, but I actually also usually add some, like if I were to use it as a spread, I'd add some umabushi, along with the water, maybe even some raw onion or some garlic. Oops, bless it. There we go. So, yuck. There we go, the greens. Did you get in a little bit of water where there was salt? So let's just, the table is clean. They've been boiling like a minute, not much more. I just turn them upside down so that I'm sure we get them all. So, we find something to take them up in. They fall down, become much less than they were. Let's see how this is going. I would say, oh, this is looking good. Give it a couple of minutes that way too. And our greens are soon done. Well, we're waiting the last moment on the greens. And just stir the kuzu with some cold water That probably was about a spoonful of kuzu. And kuzu, for those of you who don't know what that is, it looks like this. It is made out of the same plant as arrowroot, but the plant for kuzu has been grown in a volcanic soil, but besides that, it's, as far as I know, the same. Here we go. I think our greens are good to go. How long time did they get? 3 minutes. You can see they're more green than when we started. So, and there's a lot less of them. But we like greens. Some people don't like greens so much. When I met my husband, he wasn't that keen on greens. And one of the things you can think about, like, greens has this kind of like lighter energy. There is a lot of minerals in greens. And in order for us to be able to absorb the minerals, greens do go very, very well together with nuts and seeds. If you eat nuts and seeds just like between meals, you're going to irritate your whole system. It's really not a very good snack. I know it goes to be a healthy snack, but really it's not that healthy. It's an irritant to your system when you eat it between meals. If you eat it together with your greens, you're a lot better off. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm just going to take a handful of walnuts and put on them. And the easiest way, you can cut them of course, but basically what I do is just I take them between my fingers and I crush them. So nice looking. Walnuts contains omega-3, little more seeds. There we go. Good to go. Ready to serve. So this is good to go, ready to serve. That might be true. So here, the kuzu is like any other starch. You add it on, and you get it like thickened. So if you see now here, we got enough of it. So the last bit of the kuzu is quite expensive. So I always, if there is a little bit left, you can leave it in the cup, because it actually was made by being washed out and dried and washed out and dried. So it's not something that hurts that particular product. And you don't lose that once you wash out every time. So I usually have that. There we go. And now I want to add the tahini. And the tahini is actually going to make the sauce even a little thicker. But more than that, it's also going to make it like creamier and rich. So it's going to give it this kind of really nice creamy texture. And at the same time, actually, it wasn't a whole lot of tahini we used. It wasn't a whole lot of fat that went into that pot. But it does give it that kind of nice, fulfilling flavor and texture. I don't do that always. I do it sometimes. This is also if you happen to ever get too much salt in a dish and you say, oh no, that's too salty. You know, do not start with adding vinegar or sugar or sweets or all funny kinds of things. The most easy way to catch that or to save that is use tahini, almond butter, or any nut butter. Or if you are one of those people who eat dairy products, you could obviously add cream. That's always better to save a salty dish. I personally don't like to use dairy, so I use these kind of things. You see? We got a whole different kind of dish. What we have here is a nice, good, hearty stew. So let's taste it again. Well, actually, I'm sorry you can't, but I can. It's good to go. There we go. So the rice came down from pressure. I turned it off about a quarter of an hour ago, and it takes a few minutes, like 10-15 minutes for it to come down again. So I turned it off, and what I do now is there's always a little steam that's come on top of the plate, so I take the plate off, and I'll just take up the bowl like this, and I'll take out this one. And then what I do, the rice will be hard if I leave it like that, so I always loosen the rice. Loosen and separate the rice. I learned that from Judy Waxman, and this is one of the things that's followed me ever since. She was one of my really good cooking teachers. So let's see. Let's get the carrots too. All set. Ready to eat. Here we go. If you had any questions or any comments, feel free to write them in the box below or in the comment field. Feel free to share this with your friends, anybody who's interested. Have a good day.